Hi everyone and welcome back to Lockdown Dads. This is episode number 23. My name's Ian Dinwiddie. I'm a father of two. I've got a 10-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. I'm the founder of Inspiring Dads, a coaching business that helps stressed dads to balance work and fatherhood.
And I'm James Miller, author of Dads Don't Babysit and editor of workingdads.co.uk, and also father of two different children. And I'm delighted to say our guest this week is Ady Griffiths. Now, I first came across Ady at the start of the year because he'd written a book called Mindful Thoughts for Fathers, or as I just call it, Mindfulness for Dads. But its official title is Mindful Thoughts for Fathers. And I thought that was quite important and quite interesting at the time, and we'll talk about it fairly shortly and how I came to it and how much I liked it. Well, this year, it really ought to have been at the top of the bestseller charts for years, right? But thanks for joining us, Ady. Let's start with the question that we always ask before we start talking about your book and about mindfulness. How are you?
Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me. I'm okay. Yeah, it's been a strange couple of weeks. A couple of friends of mine, families have gone down with COVID, and I literally met one of them last Monday, and he messaged me saying, "Oh, I've gone down." Like, "Oh, crikey!" And I had some weird symptoms that kind of day. So I'm like, "Okay, maybe I need to get a test." Waited a couple of days, came back, was clear, but clearly had some weird bug thing. So I feel like I've just come out of that. So my head and belly have been a little bit odd, and therefore my week's been a little bit like, whoa. So it's been a real kind of week to try and go, okay, right, what do I need to achieve and when, whilst trying to practice self-care and take care of myself and take care of the family. So yeah, I've been a little bit of juggling that this week in a way, but right now I feel good. Taught yoga meditation this morning, so it's always a nice way to start Friday. Friday's best day of the week for me. Hour and a half of practice with lovely people, and then tiny bit of web design work after that. So yeah, I'm good. And yourselves?
I like to hear it. Like, yeah, feeling good. That's if you can say that at the moment, I think that is a massive win. Good at the moment is like excellent in normal times, isn't it? Yeah, it's interesting you said, and it's interesting we're talking about mindfulness this week because I think I don't know. I have to say, I mean, we're all in England, so we're all locked down at the moment, and I am finding this one harder than the first one. I think because in the first one, I think, well, partly because we had the kids at home, right? So we were homeschooling, so there was something you had to focus on them to some extent. Whereas now it's just work, and that's in many ways less interesting. It's not so novel. You had to really get your head around what the hell how each day was going to work in that first lockdown. And secondly, I think I'd forgotten about the first lockdown. We've talked a lot about the positives actually of this year, particularly in terms of dads and flexible working and all that sort of stuff. I'd forgotten that feeling of waking up and going, "Oh, it's another day. Here we go again." And we used to say that. I've forgotten. We used to say that a lot in the first lockdown. You just wake up and say, "Right, here we go again." And I've forgotten that. I mean, just even not being able to go down the town to get my coffee and my brownie. Yeah. I don't know. That shouldn't make a big difference, right? But it does feel hard, this one, particularly. I don't know. We're only 1 week in. Like, oh, really? So yeah, I'm all right, but yeah, I'm finding it hard. I think, but okay with it just now, and I think having a hard end, hopefully at the end of this, is helpful because as I say, we do know we've got 3 weeks to go. What about you? And you got away last week?
Got away, yeah. Went to Center Parcs. It was on. Everyone was very, very skeptical that it would be on at all. I think James.
You say everyone, me. Not about me.
You.
Yeah.
There's no way Center Parcs would be on. Anyway, so we know, the messages came through, lockdown starts here. What will Center Parcs do? It turned out Center Parcs took a day off, so we had to leave by 10 o'clock on the Thursday morning. So we had 2 full days in Center Parcs with the kids. Really great to get away. Weather was nice, which I think makes a big difference. I mean, it was way better than I expected when we booked a few days in November in 2 weeks of half term. So that was great. I think the same as you, James. I think I know I miss when I can't go and sit in a coffee shop for 2 or 3 hours in the morning. I like that breaking up the routine of where I do my work and what I do, that from that perspective. So that is a bit hard, but generally, I mean, I think it might reflect the fact that my social life had all but ebbed away over the course of the summer, that the fact that we're in lockdown, and the biggest benefit is that the kids are going to school, and so they've got that. It was my birthday this week as well. So
Yeah, happy birthday.
yeah, so I joined you on the 44 mark. So that was a little bit depressing when you were supposed to go out for lunch on Sunday, and it's just like they didn't even bother. You know, the place we were going to didn't even contact us to say it's cancelled. They're just like, it's cancelled, isn't it? So I just cancelled it myself, which was a little bit sad. But yeah, generally it's quite good. I mean, my house, as I think you may have had last night, the excitement of Scotland qualifying for the Euros, a major football tournament for their men for the first time in 22 years, and my wife was very excited. So yeah, it's not too bad for us.
I don't think I want to engage in that conversation. It's too difficult for me as being part English, part Scottish. I once went on when I did. All right, this makes me sound slightly poncy, but I did the newspaper review on the telly a few months back, and Ben Brown was in the chair, and it was Scotland playing England at rugby, and he was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Oh, blah blah blah," because I work for Scottish papers and I'm a bit of both and all that. He's like, "Yeah, but which one do you support?" And I was like, "Well, Ben, I'm a bit of both." And he's like, "No, but which one do you support?" I was like, "All right, I'm just doing the paper review. It's Sunday morning." I was like, "No, pick your side."
Pick a side.
So yeah, that game next summer is going to be well, it wouldn't really be tricky because I'll be supporting England, but there's reasons for that. I've written about that. I don't know. I'll find the link and we can put it in the show notes. There might be a need for some mindfulness in Scotland after that game. Oh, look at that link! Oh, look at that! Tell us about. Yeah, absolutely. Tell us about,
perfect.
Before we sort of talk about the book and particularly mindful thoughts for fathers, how did you come to all this? Whatever, I don't know is it? I don't know. What do you call it? It's spirituality. Is it part of that? I don't know. How do you sort of?
I mean, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because the word spirituality just kind of, I don't know. For me, it makes me feel a little bit too airy, fairy, new agey, blah. And it's what on earth is spirit? It's so intangible, isn't it? I mean, I think that's one of the things I like about mindfulness. I mean, to be honest, these days I'd almost say bodyfulness or embodifulness or something, but it just sounds too hideous a word to even go there. But and mindfulness, the word mind is a little bit too strong, and the whole mind thing and the brain thing for me as well. So it's kind of a bit difficult thing, isn't it? Because of course you want to define what is this thing that you're practicing and doing and trying to become or change a state of being or whatever, without it being either too religious or too secular or too scientific or whatever. I mean, for me, how I came to all of this kind of area of work or exploration, I suppose, I very nearly became a dad at a very young age, 17. Probably shouldn't give away the age of the girl at the time. It was a wee bit close for her liking. So I was kind of supposed to say I was kind of doing exams and was a bit stressed with exams and was a bit stressed. I was thinking I was about to become a father and going, hold on a minute. I need to do something as because of course my brain was just running. Oh my God, what if I am? What if I am pregnant? I would have been a millionaire by now, but I was pregnant. What if she is pregnant? What do we do? How do we do this? Couldn't talk to anybody about it other than one friend, I thought. And at the time I was working, I was cleaning. I was in sixth form and I was cleaning. One of the rooms I cleaned was the religious studies room. So, and I came across a book that was meditation. I was like, okay, I'd heard about meditation and whatever. So started to read that, kind of snuck it home and sort of read it and then snuck it back in the next day or whatever. And I think there was quite a friendly religious studies teacher there. And I think she kind of somehow, I think we'd seen each other and she was always friendly and she clocked a little bit of interest. So I started to read that and kind of practice when I went home, and also in the art room when there was nobody else around. It was a little small thing, probably about the size of this, and I'd try and practice meditation and found I was getting a much kind of calmer state of mind and body. I was like, okay, great, this works. I need some of this. So yeah, I was quite passionate about that and trying to practice it and understand more. One of the books was a kind of Hare Krishna kind of book, and I think there was some of the stuff I really liked, but I couldn't really go there with Hinduism for some reason. Just my, for me, it just seemed too other. It's like, here's a wee boy from Scotland in the southeast, near Brighton, kind of going, I didn't quite get it. I wasn't about to shave off my head and kind of wear the Hare Krishna things, clothes and all the rest of it. Full respect for that tradition, anybody that does that, obviously. But for me, I couldn't quite go there. And I think I also saw books about yoga as well. So anyway, started trying to practice some of those, but I still was a little bit, this is kind of the days of like late 80s, sort of raves and things, all the rest of it. So I was also kind of doing a bit of that, going out clubbing, having it, you know, raving, all the rest of it. And of course, dabbled a little bit in substance, shall we say. So it was kind of altered states of mind and consciousness were being explored from different angles. But I came off as a little bit of a casualty from some of the drug things. Like, hold on a minute, there was something in that meditation. Let me come back to that, because that's something I can do on a daily basis without having to risk getting, what do you call it, you know, taken in by the police or whatever, or going to Lala.
Yeah.
So, yeah, long story short, I started to try and practice some Buddhist meditation, which is focused on mindfulness and loving kindness. And it really kind of shifted my state of body and mind, and realized, okay, there's something I can keep going with. And I started to make, I went to the Glasgow Buddhist Center in the tradition, Friends of the Western Buddhist Order, it was then called, it's now called the Tree Rattling Buddhist Order. And there was one guy who had this kind of sort of martial arts kind of way about him. He was very kind of upright, something kind of noble, dignified about him. And his way of teaching really kind of warmed my heart. And at the time, I think I had some sort of anger issues with my dad. And it really helped me turn those around and go, hold on a minute. He's had a tough time through work and his life or whatever. Maybe I can kind of turn some attention towards him and start being a bit more loving, kind, and understanding of him. And it totally changed my way of seeing and being with him, and come to a point of appreciation for my fatherhood, for my father in a way. And now, of course, being a father now, it's like, crikey, I understand the stress and pressure you were in. Okay, no wonder it's a bit difficult or whatever. So,
I mean, come on, this is the perfect backstory, really, for us, in that, you know, fatherhood, or a close shave with potential fatherhood, is what brought you to sort of, you know, mindfulness. You know, we use that as a very broad term for this, just because that's what the book's about, if you like. Brought you to that in the first place, and then it's helped you to sort of deal with issues around being a father and having a father, I suppose. And also, I think what you said there is really interesting, in the sense that it was something you turned to, I don't want to say relied on, but something that, you know, you could use day to day to sort of keep on an even keel. And I'm using very broad brushstrokes here. And that kind of speaks to the whole, you know, mindfulness for dads idea, doesn't it? Because yeah, you know, trying to stay on an even keel when you are a dad is, you know, has its challenges, and you know, whatever tools we have to help have got to be welcome, right?
exactly. And I think for me, it's that whole thing. I mean, you know, I, like probably every other dad on this planet, is sometimes feels like they're wobbling off the planet. And it's like, whoa, hold on a minute, right? Let's steer back to this. You know, I can be a grumpy old git at times, I have to say, you know, nearly touching the 50 mark, 48, sometimes feeling 68, or whatever, however old it may be. So yeah, I have to really catch myself sometimes and go, hold on a minute, I've been practicing this stuff for 30 years now. Let's just take it back a peg, stop, pause, breathe, be aware of that little deer who is really not doing anything that bad wrong. And, you know, can I shift my state and be a bit more playful, a bit more curious, or whatever? So I think for me, I feel really grateful and glad to have these tips and tools just come back to, okay, be aware of myself, be aware of them. How can I change my state so I'm a kind of human being, rather than, you know, another kid on the planet causing chaos and mayhem unhelpfully, you know?
It was something, when I was reading the article and the interview you did with James on the Working Dads website, it was those two things that really resonated with me. That acceptance, that bit you had talked about, the acceptance, that thing you will feel under pressure, and you potentially will react, and also that awareness of your state. And I thought that was it was really interesting. I really enjoyed the story about with you and your daughter in the car and shouting and then stopping. And I mean, I've done that before. I've actually, like, if you don't shut up, I'm going to stop the car. And I've actually stopped the car. I'm like, okay, this isn't good. It's sort of almost pulled over. And like, okay, and then just being aware of the moment. I think it's such an important thing to sort of draw out. I think for all dads, I hope. Ady, there's something you talk about within the book called 4 skillful efforts. I think it is. How did you sort of come across that, and how does that work? How does it work for you?
Yeah, I mean, it comes from a very traditional Buddhist teaching, traditionally called the 4 right efforts. I'm terrible at remembering lists and things, so forgive me. I'll probably forget them now unmindfully, which is classic. So yeah, it's very much emphasized in terms of that kind of being aware of your body, your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, and the reality around you. And there's different lists and categories given and different emphasis to it. So, but it is part of the Buddha's main teachings, something called the Eightfold Path, which is, you know, a big whole list of things to be aware of in your life. And I think I liked it because there is that real emphasis on what's kind of concrete, practical in your experience now, which of course is our body. Providing we've got a body, we've got something we can work with. And that's why I'm really keen on the whole area or field of embodiment in a sense, because it's like, okay, this body, I can change something in my body now. I can change my posture and it's going to make a difference. If I'm just slumping, yeah, it's a really bad Friday, I hate Friday. Blah, blah, blah. Actually, this is me on Monday, actually. It takes me until end of Monday or until Tuesday when I'm like, okay, right. But yeah, if I, you know, and not in a tight, rigid way, but if I just allow a little lift in my spine, or I'm a little bit more aware with my eyes of what's around me, and I'm giving more attention to you rather than just myself or whatever, that has the potentiality to change kind of state of body and mind. And I like that. And a lot of the practices of moving the body, yoga, martial arts, dance, whatever it is, that can just shift our state out of whatever it might be before. So yeah, so traditionally it was very much taught as part of that, to be aware of body in whatever you're doing, you know, whether it is, you know, just like lifting up your cup of tea, coffee, water, cocoa, whatever it is, all the 1,000,001 options we've got these days. And then being as aware of that as you can and putting it down, or being aware of who you're with as that thing. And then, of course, there's all subtler and subtler levels to that in terms of, you're feeling the breath, the air coming in and out. And if we do that enough, that can settle us. You know, I'm aware I speak quite quickly, and they're like, hold on a minute. What happens if I be aware of my breathing? My whole body regulates itself, and then I slow down, and I can start to feel, you know, the blood moving around, the air moving in and out. I can be more aware of subtleties of you guys, or sounds around me, or whatever. So that whole interplay, body and mind, and I think the subtle and subtler states of mind that you can get to in meditation through the body. And in a way, the body is the gateway into broader, more expansive, transcendence is always a bit of a funny word, but, you know, bigger, broader, expansive states of mind, you know. So
it's, I mean, that's why, I mean, I was reading back that interview as well that I did just as a bit of research, and I was like, yeah, I was quite blunt at the beginning. I mean, basically, I was clearly a bit skeptical, like, well, this is going to be really annoying, you know, hippie shit, essentially, you know, because let's face it, as well, you know, as dads, you know, that is, you don't need that. But, you know, part of the reason I love the book is because it's not, it's, you know, it's rooted in reality. It's rooted in actually, you know, and, you know, as Ady's good enough to say that he's been there, done it, had a paddy in a car in Spain. Cars seem to be a bit of an issue, actually. You seem to have a lot of paddies in cars, but, you know, it was relatable. I think that was the thing. I mean, you know, you talk about transcendence and, you know, what, right, we can talk about that and understand to some extent what it is. But there is a level where you have to go in, as you say, you know, there's a gateway where you have to go, actually, it's just about stopping and breathing. And then, you know, we'll lead you on to further down that route. I just wonder, I mean, particularly, you know, obviously we're lockdown dads. How has your lockdown been in terms of, has mindfulness and everything that goes with it, you know, have you noticed it being particularly helpful through lockdown? And have you had people, I don't know, either talk to you about the book or just generally about the issues in the book through lockdown, and sort of more people come to mindfulness via lockdown?
And that's a really good question. I mean, I think in terms of thinking back to lockdown 1, which felt a lot more intense to me. I don't know whether at this time around, just where I am in Brighton, it feels a little bit looser, softer this time. Lockdown 1, and I think maybe my partner's quite medically trained, so she was quite hot on it. She's Italian, so they had it all coming a lot earlier. So we kind of locked down with the time that Italy did. So we were a bit ahead of it. It's like, right, we're doing this, we're doing this. Like, whoa, okay. And she was reading so many scientific things. So it was really like, boom, right there. So it was actually quite scary. I think, personally, I think I was holding quite a bit of tension in my body, some of it consciously, some of it unconsciously, that I really had to work with. I felt very fortunate to have a garden, I have to say, and to have this little cabin to come in and do my web design work and then also teach online. I had quite a lot of online events at the time. A colleague of mine ran a big embodiment conference that we were doing a lot of individual days up towards that. So that really helped also give a focus in terms of being helpful and practical for others in terms of sharing some of the skills that we kind of built up. And also doing, helping people set up website booking system for their online Zoom classes or whatever. So actually on that level, I felt very purposeful. So actually, I'm being really useful here, helping a whole load of people. And it's, that felt really good. And in many ways, I was enjoying having more time with my daughter at home in the first stage. That was all good. Then it hit a certain point, I don't know, was it 2 months in or whatever, where clearly she was bored of not seeing a friend, really wasn't interested in any blooming Zoom classes or whatever. I've been running some classes with her class, even just half an hour, like 2 or 3 times a week. And I think we're all feeling a bit fatigued of that. And let's show something we've made. Yeah, great. And it's fine for a while, but then I think she just started getting really tired and a bit bored. And, she also didn't really want to go outside as well, because I don't know, I think we probably drilled so much fear into her, the poor thing, that she was a bit like, we had to really work to get her out. So we were very fortunate that we had some help of another Italian woman who was living in Brighton at the time, and she'd quarantined, and then she came to live with us for a couple of months and really helped us look after our daughter whilst my partner and I's work was actually quite busy. She was brilliant. She was like our own little Mary Poppins. In fact, we used to kind of call her Mary Poppins. And we had a little bubble we had 5 other kids from the school, and each week the different house, different family had those kids around, and one of the adults or 2 of the adults were kind of helping them, and that made a massive difference to us, because my daughter's mental health kind of started to dip. I think me and my partner had started to get a bit stressy and a bit short with each other. Oh Christ, here we go again, Groundhog Day number 553. So at that point it really helped. And then of course we were kind of going into summer, and it's a bit like, oh, then it opened out, and oh hey, we can go away, great. So we had a little trip down to Cornwall, a little bit of supping going along. Yeah, great, good. So, and that sense of wildness, and I think the being able to be outside, and again, we're really fortunate where we are, 5 minutes and we can be running on the downs. So for me, that combination of going in, I mean, I like retreats. I would have loved to be on retreat, and I've got friends who don't have kids, and they're like, oh, it's just like a retreat for weeks. And what? Yeah, really? Working retreat and family. Yeah, I wish. And so yeah, I'm very used to having time by myself, and generally in the past it would have been on 6 weeks retreat a year and all the rest. And I've done a 4-month-long retreat, and so I can be in that zone. But this was obviously different, because you're having to do all the childcare, you're having to work, and you're having to try and keep some momentum in a practice. And I was fortunate to have the skills. I have to say, after that holiday and things kind of wind down, and some of the emergency sort of work that was going on, right, do this, help this, I had to pause. I'd actually got a little bit, burnout's a strong word, but I'd got quite tired out, a bit fatigued, and I was struggling to get back to kind of levels of energy that I had been experiencing when I'd been out running on the downs and doing all the things. So it took me a while to kind of come back to normality. And then, yeah, and actually, I mean, in relationship to fathers, a close friend of mine died, not of COVID. He had motor neuron disease. So the last couple of years, you know, I mean, he'd done really well for 2 years. He was very fortunate in terms of his symptoms, just very gradual. Then suddenly, the last 2 months really went downhill very rapidly. And he was somebody that we kind of shared this practice with. He was practicing Buddhist and practicing mindfulness and kindness. His daughter's in the same class in my school. And a really lovely family. And yeah, I think for a few weeks that really rocked me, the kind of loss of him, who he was, and an amazing guy. And it just kind of, again, it brought home that reality of none of us know when we're going to go. Think like grief, you know, probably all of us experience grief in one way or another. And when you touch grief, often it touches another grief and various things just like, whoa. So yeah, it was been an intense period of time. But again, I think without these practices, to come back to center and come back to being on the ground, being practical of, right, what do I need to do? Just do today. Let's start with today. Okay, need to get Francesca to school, need to tidy the house, need to answer those emails, how can I take care of myself and look out for a friend as well. So fortunate to have the awareness of it and also support a partner, so I could kind of go into that a bit and then come out, you know.
That comes up time and again in these conversations, doesn't it? Exactly, having communication with your partner or you know, or sometimes with your employer or whatever. Communication in general then often comes up, but yes, absolutely, within the household is been very much seems to have been key to success to lockdown, is good communications in your household. That comes up time and again.
And coming to this lockdown now, I have to say it's when I first heard of it, I could feel myself go, oh God, oh no, I feel like this big cloud over my head. And I had to really catch myself and go, hold on, be mindful of that thought. Because what is that doing? That's making me go like that. And it's like, hold on, this is going to be different. It's not going to be the same. The kids are at school, yay, and you know, the work's different. People are familiar with what it takes to do. And I mean, my sense of around here anyway is like, you know, people are doing the masks, they're taking care on various levels, but also it's a lot looser, it's softer. I don't feel people are quite so, you know, as they were.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly noticed that. I remember the first lockdown, people would cross the street to avoid you, and now they don't. And also, some people are just taking the piss. Some people take the piss now. I mean, you know, our market down the road is open on Saturday. It's absolutely rammed. I'm like, what are you doing? But there you go. Try not to judge people and all that. You know, each to their own.
Hard to know your mind as well, isn't it? In terms of because you know, it's not like we can see these particles or whatever. How much we go, oh yeah, it's this, and oh, it's this much contact and this distance, and you know, it is so much unknown. Okay, we can know the science in certain ways, but it's really intangible as well, isn't it? It's invisible thing you can't touch or see. Who's got it? Who hasn't?
Yeah.
What are we doing? What are we doing at Christmas? Yeah, that's the other.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we've been thinking about. So my brother can go to South Africa. South Africa have opened up. His insurance does cover him, despite because of the type of travel essential travel. So he's got some work insurance and that kind of thing. So he's off to South Africa for 2 weeks to see his eldest two daughters, who he hasn't seen since it'll probably be close to a year. So we're kind of planning that, and then he will have to quarantine when he comes back. And my dad will be shielding, probably should be shielding. And my dad had a heart transplant 26 years ago. I look at the calendar. I look at the year when it was. No, 24 years ago. So, so I think that's a really, really interesting sort of time in terms of planning. I think, and that's and going. So it's kind of my tip really this week, James.
Nice, smooth. Like
it's about planning and in putting something in the calendar. So we had sent it for November. So I've got to be admit, Lisa and I, we do a lot of our calendars are actually on Google Calendar. So, it's a bit of a running joke, whereas if it's not in the calendar, you haven't sent each other a meeting request, then it's not officially in the calendar. So then we duplicate some key things. I know, it's pretty sad, really. We duplicate some key things onto a physical calendar. We get the same calendar every year. My dad buys us a calendar religiously, and we have the I think it's the RSPB calendar, possibly, or the BBC photography, all the animals. And we write on it. There's little boxes, and you can write on those key things. And November was a little bit sad because it had my birthday was in there, going out for a dinner, which then got crossed off. A little bit of Center Parcs. I actually had a cardo on the calendar because it was a different day to what we were used to, just to remind myself. But the rest of the month completely blank. And so I've been going through and putting stuff in the calendar, things to look forward to, even if they're quite minor. Even if they think, right, we're going to do this on this day, we're going to do, we're doing a local lights turn on in Hayes down here, and at 5 o'clock on Saturday, 28th of November, everyone locally is getting organised to flick on their outside lights. So we've kind of got that on the calendar. So my top tip this week is about putting things in the calendar, having things to look forward to.
Good one. Yeah, makes a lot of sense, because I'm looking at my calendar and as you said, it's completely empty in November. I mean, somebody said something, I can't remember, there was somebody come around to put a carpet in the other day, and it was like, can I come round Monday? I was like, yeah. I went to look at the calendar and they went, well, yeah, obviously there's nothing in the calendar. Right, my tip is a mindfulness related tip, actually. I don't know if Ady will like it or not. It's quite an expensive one, and it's quite, get one of these, actually, an Apple Watch, right? I mean, it's, expensive and controls your mind, right? Okay, so there's bad things about it, but since I got one sort of at the end of the summer as a sort of post-lockdown fancy birthday present to myself to some extent, I exercise much more because I want to close my rings, but the mindfulness app, which I was like, yeah, that's rubbish, breathe for a minute, what difference can that make? But it really does. I mean, I know it's obviously not perhaps as sophisticated as what you suggest and what you teach, Ady, but even just stopping for a minute and breathing, those days, at the end of the week, it'll say you've done it 4 times, and I go, oh yeah, they were the better days. They were the ones that I felt more able to cope with stuff. So it's rather expensive, but Christmas is coming, so if you can, and I appreciate there are financial constraints in a lot of people at the moment. If you can, I do recommend getting one. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we're going to have to keep it tight. Ady, what's your tip?
I'd second that. I literally got one this week, so I agree with that. I would say, yeah, make some time for you, so you take care of you, so then you can take care of others. Whether that's physical movement, exercise, running, yoga, dance, martial arts, or just a walk in the garden or somewhere around you, whatever it is, because if you can't take care of you, there's no way you're going to be able to take care of somebody else. So, yeah.
It's good advice. It came up I was in a university webinar on becoming a parent in pandemic this week, and that's exactly what came up. Was a lot of the mums who'd had a very stressful time were saying actually they needed their partners to look after themselves, because if you can't, as you say, if you can't look after yourself, you can't, you're no good looking after anybody else if you're falling apart. So it's good advice, always good advice.
Ady, if people want to learn more about your book and more about what you do, where can they go?
So really simple, you could go to my website, which is my kind of Buddhist name, vidyadasa.com, which I'll spell, vidyadasa.com. Maybe you can put it on text on the edit if you're willing.
It'll be there.
Otherwise, if you just Google the title, Mindful Thoughts for Fathers, it will come up, and there's various places you can buy it online or in person. And on my website, there's also links to other things like the Embodiment Conference, which a colleague of mine set up, which had 1,000 presenters on it, teaching all sorts of things to do with embodiment and mindfulness, a massive epic thing. So, but yeah, or look up my name, Ady Griffiths, and or email me. If you find me in my website, you can email me. Always happy to
Perfect. We'll put all the links in. We'll put all the links in the description. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ady. It's been really, really interesting, and we've been practicing a little bit of mindfulness and a bit of breathing, I think, as we go along, a bit of posture, certainly. So thank you very much for joining us. This has been episode number 23 of Lockdown Dads. My name's Ian Dinwiddie. It's been a pleasure to have you with us listening and watching, and we will see you all next week for another episode. Thank you and goodbye.